about I'm going to do a live stream. Welcome to everybody out there. I'm going to do a live stream talking about the Rwandan genocide and comparing and contrasting that to South Africa's apartheid. All right. Now, let me explain. Let me explain what is going on here, okay? I talked about it previously a little bit in the last live stream. AfriForum has got a lot of heat about. One second. Sorry about that. Just I'm going to copy the link right here to show my Telegram groups. If anybody wants to check it out. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, where 800,000 people were killed because they were either because they were Tutsi or because they were not Hutu extremists. Okay, here is the deal with that. Okay, in Rwanda, there's not a lot of anti-white attitude, and in Rwanda, they feel a lot of times left out and resented that it wasn't observed through African history as much as apartheid was, and apartheid was a disgrace. Apartheid had to go. It wasn't racially equal. Blacks were denied several opportunities. Blacks couldn't vote. They couldn't be in government just because of the color of their skin. You can't do that. That's wrong to do. And apartheid ended in 1994. It was all over the international media. The international media lauded it. They applauded it, as they should have, I firmly believe. But what was going on in Rwanda, which got limited news coverage, I mean limited news coverage, was when 800,000 innocent Rwandans died just because they were Tutsi or because they weren't Hutu extremists. It was black on black violence. It was black on black crime. And because of that, because it wasn't interracial crime, it was largely ignored by the mainstream media worldwide, not just the American media. It was largely ignored worldwide, except for the only country I can think of where it wasn't ignored was Canada, basically. Canada, Tunisia sent some soldiers, Belgium did, Bangladesh, but they were few and far between. Okay? And I want to visit the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg. I really do. I want to visit the Apartheid Museum there, see what that's all about. But I also want to visit the Rwandan Genocide Museum in Rwanda. And we need to remember the Rwandan genocide. And the Rwandan genocide was way worse than apartheid. 800,000 people were killed. And yes, they were left in the streets as well. Now, hyenas usually didn't come to the main towns in Rwanda to eat the victims, but stray dogs did. And stray dogs fed on those victims for days. And I recommend that you guys do watch the documentary of Romeo Dallaire called Shake Hands with the Devil. Romeo Dallaire was the UN general that led the peacekeeping force in Rwanda. And there's a good documentary on YouTube called Shake Hands with the Devil. And I'm going to go ahead and post the link up here via my mobile device. And check it out. So just hang on one second. Just hang on one second. I'll post it up there for you guys if you want to take a look at it. There's the link to Romeo Dallaire's documentary, Shake Hands with the Devil. I highly recommend that you guys check it out. Okay, some background information with the Rwandan genocide. Okay, before I go there, okay, AfriForum was not promoting or condoning apartheid with what they said. They talked about that apartheid may not be considered a crime against humanity because large numbers of lives were not lost in apartheid. Plenty of people had gotten beaten and unlawfully detained, unlawfully arrested, but not too many people were killed in apartheid because of the color of their skin. I mean, it happened, but overall, it was an exception. The exception with that was Steve Biko. Steve Biko, who I highly admired, led the Black Consciousness movement, and he said in South Africa there should be no minority, which talks about white people, that there should be no majority, which talks about black people, but there should just be people. Well, the apartheid government arrested him on bogus charges, and they slammed his head against the wall, and then it killed him. and that drew a lot of criticism from a lot of countries and a lot of media. But whereas in Rwanda, 800,000 people died right before the genocide. Juvenal Habya Rimana was the leader of Rwanda, and his private plane went down. It was shot down by a rocket-propelled grenade. Well, the plane was shot down by a rocket-propelled grenade, and we still to this day don't know if it was Hutu extremists that did it or if it was Tutsi extremists that did it. Some people say it was Paul Kagame, the leader of the RPF, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, that was rebelling against the Hutu majority government for repressive policies. Some people said it was Paul Kagame, others say it wasn't. We don't know who it was, but the Rwandan genocide did happen. It was on the verge of happening already, but Colonel Bagasora took control of the government after that, and he basically was a sociopath, and he killed anybody who wasn't a Hutu extremist or who was Tutsi. That's basically what happened. And Colonel Bagasora, Romeo Dallaire met him, shook his hand, and he basically said it was like he was shaking hands with the devil. And what AfriForum was trying to say is that apartheid was bad, but the Rwandan genocide, which was largely ignored, was way worse than what transpired during apartheid. And AfriForum got a lot of criticism for it, and I firmly believe that it was a lot of unjust criticism for what happened. Okay? Another thing that I'm going to address right now is the Cape Independence. We'll talk about the Cape Independence as well. The Western Cape has a party called the Cape Independence Party that wants to break away from South Africa. It wants to break away from South Africa, and they want to, run their own affairs. They have lost faith in the ANC government. They've lost faith in the government of South Africa. As much as I can understand why the Western Cape wants to do that, I don't think it's possible, and let me explain why. I don't think, because of all the tourism revenue that Cape Town typically brings in, and because of all the resources that Cape Town has as well, I don't think South Africa is going to let you go quietly. And I think if the Western Cape province breaks away from South Africa, they're not going to have a standing army, and they're not going to have enough military resources to take on the South African army. As broken as the South African military is right now, it still is a standing army, and I believe they could go take on the Western Cape and then absorb it back in and then declare martial law on the Western Cape province. If you guys have any different opinions, let me know. Now, do I think it's a racist party? Absolutely not. One of the majority of people in the Western Cape Party are coloreds, which is the South African term for mixed race, and coloreds have had it really bad in South Africa. They've not been, they weren't recognized as white during apartheid, but they were not, since black majority rule took place from 1994 onward, since it's not taking place from 1994 onward, they haven't been recognized as black either. And a lot of coloreds have really lost faith in the new South Africa and the ANC government, and that's one reason they're going towards the Cape Independence Party. But you guys are listening, watching the stream. What do you guys think? What do you guys want to? What do you guys think? You guys think that the Cape should break away from the? You guys think the Cape should break away from South Africa or not? So yeah, talking about Cape Independence at the moment. Okay, yeah, and that's what, yeah. Look, I firmly believe that Cape Independence is not the answer. As I talked about, I don't think the South African government's going to let you guys go quietly, and I think they're going to send their army in the Cape province if the Cape breaks away, and I think they're going to absorb the Cape province. Right now, also the Cape Independence Party only has like less than 1% support, so I think that it's going to really be hard to get enough people on board. Most people, even though the Cape Independence Party is gaining ground, you got to give them that. They're gaining ground. They're gaining support. But most people still think the Democratic Alliance and the DA is the best opposition that can challenge the African National Congress or the ANC. I firmly believe, but like I said, I'm not open to where it's not open to where people can call in. I just don't have the software and equipment for that yet. Can't have guests, but if you guys want to type it, please. If you guys have any questions or comments, please type in your questions or comments, and I will be happy to answer them. If you guys want to do that. All right. And I talked about how the 1994 Rwandan genocide was way worse than the situation with apartheid. Yes, eventually blacks were allowed to become doctors under the apartheid system and become more professional, but that did not happen until the 1980s. There was a large section that was called Bantu education, and that was basically designed to keep blacks down and to only educate them to do the most menial jobs. Now, with that being said, I hate to say this because apartheid was wrong and it was a scar, but a lot of blacks that lived in South Africa under apartheid were a lot better than the rest of Africa. A lot of immigrants from elsewhere, black immigrants, came and risked their lives being eaten by lions in the Serengeti to get to apartheid South Africa, because of the job opportunities and the way because of the jobs, that there were jobs. They may have been menial jobs, but they were jobs, and there were more opportunities in apartheid South Africa for them than it was in their respectable African country at the time. And they also had the highest amount of paved roads and the highest amount of running water out of anywhere in Africa. But still, like I said, still apartheid was a scar. It discriminated on the basis of color, and you can't do that. So, all right, well, because I don't have too many viewers right now, I'm just gonna probably go about 8 more minutes. What do you guys want to talk about? What do you guys want to discuss? I understand right now it is 11:28 p.m. in South Africa, and that's most of my viewers are. It's 11:28 p.m. in South Africa, and that is it's very late, and people got to go to work. I understand that. But all right, another thing I want to talk about from my home country, this happened in Florida back in 1990, and most American police are good. I can vouch for that, but this guy was not. He was an evil guy. He was a guy named Timothy Scott Harris. He was with the Florida Highway Patrol, and in 1990, he killed this lady. He was on patrol. He pulled her over for wearing headphones, and he said, when he forced a woman out of her car, forced her to have sex with him, and the rape got rough, and he unintentionally strangled and killed her with her own underwear. That happened. The victim's name was Lorraine Hendricks, and Timothy Scott Harris is still serving time in the Florida penitentiary for this. He got sentenced to life imprisonment, and he got sentenced to life imprisonment, and he is still behind bars in Florida. He had always wanted to be a cop. At first he was with the Melbourne Village Police Department, but he was asked to resign, even though it was a 3-person police department, but very small department. But he got in trouble chasing women on the job, and then when he pulled women over, taking their driver's license and making them go to the station to pick up the license. Plus, he drove the car like a bat out of hell. He drove the car like a bat out of hell. So the Melbourne Village Police Department, they didn't fire him, but they asked him to resign. But when they asked him to resign, they still gave him a glowing letter of recommendation. So then he went to the Sebastian Police Department and did a lot of the same things, and that really didn't help. And then he actually did meet his wife there when he went to the Sebastian Police Department. He pulled her over, and she thought it was kind of cute. They eventually married, but he treated her like crap. Like in their wedding, the wife's name was Sandra Lynn Wessendorf. Everybody called her Sandy. Well, Sandy. There was a wedding picture of Tim and Sandy, and you couldn't see it because his hand was behind her back, but he pinched her He was pinching her, and he treated the wife like crap. The kids that were being named had to be what he wanted. The girl was always going to be named Jennifer Lynn, and the boy Timothy Jr. He didn't really care what Sandy wanted, and while he didn't drink, smoke, or do drugs, he was always in a hurry to have things, and he was a spender. Went from one possession to another like a little kid. The only reason he had a good credit history was because fortunately, she managed the finances, and had she not done that, he would have had a horrible credit history. He eventually went to the Florida Highway Patrol, got accepted to the academy. He had a 99 in defensive driving, which was his highest score, and then an 88, which was his lowest score in firearms. But, I mean, like I said, but he was a sociopath, and he pulled Lorraine Hendricks over and basically killed her. But Anne Rule, true crime writer, wrote a good book called You Belong to Me, which is an excellent book, and I recommend that you guys check it out. And, all right, I want to just go a few more minutes. I understand most of you guys are asleep right now. If you guys want to comment, just feel free to type in the chat if you guys want to comment and share your thoughts, and be happy to hear from you. All right. Another thing that I wanted to cover is that South Africa did amazing things in World War II, and it's really not talked about a lot. But the South African Air Force particularly did a lot of amazing things in World War II. Particularly, they took on the Italian Air Force when the Italian Air Force was based in Ethiopia, and the South African Air Force, because of the pro-Nazi sentiments that did exist in South Africa at the time, South Africa knew that they could not have they could not conscript people into the military during World War II, but they had an all-volunteer force. But it wasn't mostly English South Africans and just a few Afrikaners. It was actually 60% Afrikaner and 40% South Africans of English ancestry. And Jan Smuts was the prime minister of South Africa at the time. Jan Smuts was not a British South African. He was not of English origin. He was actually an Afrikaner, fought for the Afrikaners in the Boer War. But after the war's end, he dreamed of making peace with the UK, and in 1910, the Union of South Africa was formed, and Jan Smuts became prime minister of South Africa. And I firmly believe he was one of the better prime ministers that South Africa had. I mean, what England did to the Afrikaners was horrible, and it was wrong, but at the same time, you can't remain bitter the rest of your life. And Jan Smuts was largely behind the creation of the Union of South Africa, and tried to form an alliance with the UK and let bygones be bygones. And before he became prime minister, he was Minister of Defense in World War I. He was South Africa's Minister of Defense, and he had to deal with an Afrikaner rebellion that happened in 1914 and 1915, because there were plenty of people that thought that the South Africans should have sided with the Germans. But Jan Smuts, and I believe the prime minister at the time was P.W. Botha, they actually donned on the uniform and ran the Germans out of Southwest Africa, and they took control of Southwest Africa. And it eventually became Namibia. And Namibia broke away from South Africa and became independent in 1990. But Southwest Africa was a German territory up until World War I. And when World War II rolled around, and Jan Smuts was narrowly elected prime minister in the parliament over Herzog. Herzog was very pro-Nazi, had a lot of pro-Nazi sentiment. But Jan Smuts won narrowly, but he still won. And a lot of, and like I said, it was an all-volunteer force. And also, unfortunately, the Dutch Reformed Church would not let South African soldiers wear their uniforms in the church service, because there were plenty of people in the Dutch Reformed Church that believed that South Africa should have sided with Nazi Germany. Now, it's not all that simple. There was still some bitterness over the Boer War, and Germany in the 1900s condemned what Britain was doing to the Boers, or to the Afrikaners, I should say. And there was a lot of sentiment there, and there was a lot of people thinking that they should side with Germany because of how Germany condemned the Boer War. That there was a lot of that going on as well. But one of the best things that the South Africans did during World War II is, even though the Italians had superior planes and their pilots were very well trained, but the South African Air Force typically defeated the Italian Air Force in World War II whenever they faced them. Also, during the Battle of Britain, there was this guy named Adolf Milan, and he was known as the King of England's favorite Afrikaner. And he led several fighter squadrons in the Battle of Britain. And he also, after World War II, went on to become the lead Torch Commando, which was one of the first anti-apartheid units, which was really awesome. So the 2 likes right here. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Also, the colony of Madagascar was a French colony, but when Germany took over France in World War II, the Madagascar government chose to cooperate with Germany. But the South Africans, as well as the British, sent a landing force there to take over Madagascar, and that helped control a key shipping lane in the world. And that happened as well. Also, there was a Warsaw airlift, which was designed to help Polish guerrilla fighters as well as Jews who escaped the concentration camps. And while the mission was a failure, the South African Air Force flew as low to the ground as they possibly could to try to deliver supplies to the guerrilla fighters. And Poland recognizes the achievement that the South African Air Force did on World War II to this day. So that's probably a piece of South African history that you guys don't know. I talk about South Africa's involvement in World War II because they were abandoned by the National Party after World War II, when the National Party was elected in 1948. But at the same time, they were abandoned by the ANC because they're white. And it's just a sad situation. So this is my final live stream for the day. I did 3 today because I'm probably not going to do any the rest of this week. I got a busy week coming up ahead. So I'll see you guys next week. Hope everybody's doing well. Take care. God bless. And bye-bye. Bye-bye.